Boy, June 13th was quite an eventful day, and we have to talk about it, okay? Make sure you guys are hitting the like button, subscribing, and everything. So, if you guys remember how June 13th started, we had a witness who was an officer of Homeland Security. He went up first. The attorneys had a back and forth about admissions, weapons, whether the guns were in the safe or not. So after that officer, then we had a witness who came in by the name of Jonthan Perez. Jonthan Perez does this little immunity thing, right? Because he's about to testify. So in after that, Diddy gets basically accused by the government about, nodding his head or looking at the witnesses or whatever. Let's get right into the transcripts about that, because then after this, you had the situation where we have Jonthan Perez on the stand, and then guess what? Kanye makes an appearance. Okay, not in court, but like in the overflow room, which sounds like he might have had his own little area in the overflow room. And he was only there for 40 minutes to quote unquote show support for the family. A lot of us can interpret that to either showing support. Maybe he was. I don't know. Could be, or just to get trending, or he just happens to be there because I was there. I think he was there for like a graduation, from what I've heard. But people were saying that he was going to show up, and then he died. Let's get into these transcripts and let me know what you guys think of the comments. Let's go. Miss Comey. Yes, Your Honor. This is just one thing I wanted to note. Obviously, I can't see Mr. Combs during the examination. For the most part, my back is to him. But my colleagues in the back of the room informed me that Mr. Combs has been nodding during cross examination, did so for this most recent witness, and has done so at times during James' examination as well. We just like to ask that Your Honor remind Mr. Combs that even if he's not looking at the jury, nodding, especially empathetically during cross examination, is not appropriate and is not something that he should be doing. Steele says, Your Honor, can I? So, Brian Steele, yes, I just want the record to reflect that for most of the trial before this honorable court, I have been sitting to the left of Mr. Combs. And I understand that AUSA is just repeating what other people said. He has been nothing but professional, Your Honor. I know what you said. I've heard that you say it days ago. Mr. Combs, since the time, is not even looking at the jurors because he does not want to defy the court orders. So the court's looking directly at Mr. Combs. I'm to his left and I pay close attention to the goings on in the courtroom. And it's my affirmation Mr. Combs did nothing inappropriate at all today or any day, actually. But I just wanted that for the record. The court says, all right, very good. Court speaks. Look, we had an exchange about this a few days ago, and I reiterated it later in the day. And my understanding is, unless someone tells me different, is that counsel on both sides have made clear to their respective teams to be following those rules. There is going to be some amount of reaction to testimony that is given, and it is impossible to police every reaction from every person in this courtroom to testimony that's given or other things that happens. But I was clear initially that there should be no attempt to, through facial expression or otherwise, make any effort either communicate with or influence the jury. Unless I see things or hear that anyone's trying to violate that, I will assume that counsel has properly advised their client and that the other members of their teams will proceed on that basis. Ms. Comey, if anything further comes to your attention, please let me know. And since we're facing the opposite way, we will certainly keep an eye out for anything that happens. Thank you, Your Honor, says Ms. Comey. I'm not asking for a curative instructions. I'm not suggesting Mr. Combs should be removed. I'm just note that Mr. Combs nodding empathetically when his attorney is asking a yes or no question for which he wants a yes answer could raise the problem that we flagged before. And I just want to put on the record our request that he is not to do so. Court says fair enough. All right. Let's get into the Jonthan testimony, okay? And this is direct examination. Jonthan is questioned by Ms. Smizer for the government. Good morning, Mr. Perez. Good morning. How old are you? 35. Where are you from? Fort Lauderdale, Florida. How far did you go in school? Bachelor's in communication. I want to direct your attention to the end of 2021. Were you working around that time? Yes. Where were you working? I started working for Combs Entertainment. Combs Entertainment or Combs Enterprise? Combs Enterprise. And would you mind just pulling the mic a little closer to you? Okay. When you were at Combs Enterprise, did the company ever change its name to Combs Global? What was your role at Combs Enterprise or Combs Global? Personal assistants. Whose personal assistant were you? Mr. Combs. Okay. Mr. Perez, on the screen in front of you, do you recognize the person who's depicted here? Yes. Who is it? It's Mr. Combs. Do you know Mr. Combs by any other names? Diddy, P. Love, Mr. C. Love. Mr. Perez, when did you start working for Mr. Combs? December of 2021. Do you still work for him? No. When did you stop? September of 2024. How did you first learn about the job opening as Mr. Combs' assistant? KK reached out to me. Who is KK? Christina Coram. What's Miss Coram's title? Chief of Staff. How did you know Miss Coram when she reached out? I had interviewed with her a few years prior for the same role. And did you get or take a job at the time? No. When Miss Coram reached out to you, what did she say? She just said that she had an opening and she wanted to see if I was available when what I was doing. How did you respond? I told her that I was available, not working, and then we arranged for me to go to Miami to do a trial. When you say to do a trial, what are you talking about? Like a test run of the job, working with the other employees to see if it would be a good fit. Did you end up doing that trial? Yes. How long did that last? 1 week. What happened at the end of that week? I was offered employment. Did you take that job? Yes. So when you became personal assistant for Mr. Combs, what were your responsibilities at the high level? Doing research, making sure that he was where he needed to be in terms of making sure he was at the meetings, making sure he had any materials to be prepped for his meetings, his buyings, packing, organizing, working closely with the house managers to make sure the homes had everything they needed. When you were working as a personal assistant, where were you physically working? Between his homes, between his homes in LA and Miami. Where did Mr. Combs live in LA? 200 South Mapleton. What about in Miami? 1 and 2 Star Island. Mr. Perez, what was your salary when you were a personal assistant? I started making 85,000 a year and ended up making 100. How often were you paid? Biweekly. What entities paid you when you were a personal assistant? Combs Enterprise and Combs Global. Who was your direct supervisor when you were a personal assistant? KK. And she was the chief of staff, right? Correct. How often, if at all, did you see Miss Coram interact with Mr. Combs? Almost every day. From what you can see, how would you describe Miss Coram's relationship with Mr. Combs? They seem to have a good working relationship. Did they also appear to have a personal relationship? Yes, some days. And what was that from your perspective? Mm, I think that's when you're working with in jobs like especially working in someone's home, some of the personal and the business mix sometimes. So it would just depend on the day and what was going on. And when you started as a personal assistant, what were the nature of your interactions with Mr. Combs? When I first started, probably for the first 6 months or so, there wasn't a lot of interaction, just kind of playing in the background, helping the other staff, like providing support for the other staff. Me and Mr. Combs didn't have a lot of interaction, probably the first 6 to 8 months. How were you getting instructions on what to do in those months? From KK. When you started communicating more with Mr. Combs, did he also provide you instructions? Yes. When you started working for Mr. Combs, were there any other personal assistants? Yes. How many? 3 to 4? How many personal assistants did Mr. Combs typically have when you were there? 3 to 4. What other personal assistants did you work with? When I first started, I overlapped with Philip Pines and I also overlap with Frankie Santella, and he was in the process of transitioning into a different role. There was also an assistant named Joey Chavez when I first started. And throughout my time there was an assistant named Rob and Brendan. And did Mr. Combs have any butlers when you were there? There was a butler named Frank Rodriguez. And how often did Mr. Rodriguez and the personal assistants you listed interact with Mr. Combs? Every day. I want to talk about some of the people you mentioned. Who is this? Philip Pines. How did you know Mr. Pines? From being one of Mr. Combs' assistant. Is it fair and accurate depiction of him? Yes. Mr. Perez, how often did you or how long did Mr. Pines work for Mr. Combs while you were there? About a week or two. Did you interact with Mr. Pines after he left his job with Mr. Combs? Yes. Under what circumstances? Well, he would attend some of the events that we had and he would help us procure marijuana. And when you were getting marijuana with Mr. Pines, were you getting it for yourself or for someone else? For Mr. Combs. Miss Perez, do you recognize this person? Yes. Who is it? Frankie. Do you know Frankie's last name? Santella? Frankie Santella. How do you know Mr. Santella? From working with Mr. Combs. Is it a fair and accurate depiction of Mr. Santella? Yes. Mr. Perez, how long did Mr. Santella work as a personal assistant while you were there? I believe we overlapped in his personal assistant duties like 2 or 4 weeks. What did he do after being a personal assistant? He became a music manager for whom? For Mr. Combs. Do you recognize this person, Mr. Perez? Yes. Who is it? Joey Chavez. How do you know Mr. Chavez? As being one of Combs' personal assistants. Is it fair and accurate depiction of Mr. Chavez? Yes. Mr. Perez, when did Mr. Chavez work for Mr. Combs relative to you? He was already there when I started, and I think he stopped working maybe around January 2024. Do you recognize this person? Yes. Who is it? Brendan Paul. How do you know Mr. Paul? From being one of Mr. Combs' personal assistants. And when did Mr. Paul work for Mr. Combs relative to you? I believe he started about a year after me, up until I think March 2024. Hey, do you recognize this person? Yes. And who is it? Frank Rodriguez. And is that the butler you mentioned earlier? Yes. When did Mr. Rodriguez work for Mr. Combs, if you know? Um, he started a few months, I think, after me, and he up until almost the end. From what you could see, what were Mr. Rodriguez's responsibilities as compared to those of personal assistants? His primary focus was to make sure all the food and beverages and items that Mr. Combs would want were always readily available, and staying close to him by his side for whatever he would potentially need. Ms. Press, when you were working as a personal assistant, what were your typical hours? I generally work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Were there other assistants who typically worked at night? Yeah, our shifts changed a little bit depending on what assistants were employed at the time. Um, or what was actually happening with the schedule. But typically, Joey or Frank would work in the evening. When you say Frank, are you referring to Frank Rodriguez? Yes. Did Mr. Combs have security when you were there? Yes. Who were some of the security personnel? Fahim Muhammad was the head of security. Do you recognize this person? Yes. Who is that? Fahim? And what's Fahim's role? Head of security? What, if any, role did Mr. Fahim have with regards to cash? Well, the security guards kept the cash in a safe somewhere in the home. And if you needed cash in your capacity as a personal assistant, how would you go about getting it? By asking Fahim. Do you recognize this person? Yes. Who is that? J9. Do you know J9 by any other name? James. Do you know his last name? Fontaine. What was J9's role? He was one of the security guards and drivers for Mr. Combs. Were you aware of someone named Abdu? Yes. And who is that? One of the security guards. What about someone named Duke? Also one of the security guards. When you were working for Mr. Combs, did Mr. Combs have any stylists? Yes. There was a road manager. Who was that? Jung. Do you know Jung's last name? Chow. When you were employed by Mr. Combs, were you aware of the term King Knights? Yes. How did you learn that term? Through KK or one of the other assistants? What did you understand the term King Knights to mean? I understood it to be Mr. Combs going to a hotel to have private time with the female. I want to show you a document, Mr. Perez. Could you just look in the binder that's to your left, the one closest to you? If you can open up, there's a picture in the front left. Do you see that? Yes. Mr. Perez, I'm going to refer to the person in this photograph as Jane, and I ask you to do the same, okay? Okay. Do you recognize Jane? Yes. How do you recognize her? As being one of Mr. Combs' guests. When you say guest, what do you mean? Like a female friend, companion? I'm not sure exactly how. Was Jane with Mr. Combs for any king nights when you were there? Yes. How would you typically learn that Mr. Combs was going to have a king's night? Through KK or one of the assistants? How much notice would you generally get from Miss Coram or other assistants about a king's night? Anywhere from 2 hours to a full day. At a high level, what were personal assistants required to do for king's nights? Well, there was a lot of packing materials, making sure that he was going to have everything he needed for 12 to 24 hours without having to bother anybody. So, drinks, food, we would bring liquor, music, lights, and other personal items. We'll talk about some of those items in a bit. But where would these king nights typically take place? In hotels. And who would book the hotel rooms? Our travel manager. What was her name? Jessica Ruiz. How did you know Jessica Ruiz was the one who helped book hotels? From being in contact with her. Did you ever talk with her about hotel nights? In what regards? About the rooms used for hotel nights? About the rooms? Yes. Was Jessica saved in your phone? Yes. What was her contact in your phone? I believe it was Jessica Travel. Were there times when king nights were not in hotel rooms? Yes. Where did they occur when they weren't in hotel rooms? At a guest home. And were there any at Jane's home? Yes. Which assistants were primarily responsible for helping with king nights when you were there? Typically, whatever assistant was working in the evening. And were there assistants who typically helped in the evenings? Joey or Frank. Were there ever times when you set up king rooms yourself? Yes. Approximately how many times? I can't give you an exact number, but somewhere around 5. And why were you not involved with setting up king nights more often? I typically work during the day. When you set up hotel rooms, what kind of items did you bring to the hotel room? Food, liquor, other beverages, or a change of clothing, lights, music, and other personal items. What kind of personal items would you bring? Like condominiums and looby loobs? Did you ever include honey in your setup for king nights? Yes. What was your understanding of what that was used for? The honey was to enhance males' love. I want to show you what's in evidence. Okay. Do you recognize this photo? Yes. What is it? Honey? Is it the same honey that you would use for the king nights? Yes. Now, from here, Jonthan Perez is asked about the lights, what he was setting up, where he would, go to buy certain items for these nights. He told the prosecution that he was going to S stores, okay? And he would pay some of these he would make these purchases with either a company card or cash. He would get the cash from security to fund these king nights. He was shown boxes of the Astroglide and asked to identify the Astroglide and the honey and all this other stuff. Okay, next question. Mr. Perez, when you were there, did personal assistants have any roles related to cleanup from king nights? Yes. Did you ever clean up from a king's night? Yes. When you went to clean up hotel rooms after a king's night, what generally did they look like? They were just a bit of a mess and disarray. How? Just a lot of sheets and towels and oils. And what did you do when you cleaned up these hotel rooms? Typically, the reason for going was to collect all of the items that were left behind. So anything we brought, we would typically bring back with us. Would you do anything else when you were in the room? Sometimes, like a quick clean, just putting the room back together in some way, or gathering towels and sheets together to just so the room wasn't a mess. Did you do that cleaning before or after the hotel staff helped? Before. Why would you do it before? Just to sometimes the hotel would have who was staying in the room. So just to kind of out of respect for the staff, just to kind of help the cleanup crew. When they're working nights, how long would Mr. Combs generally be away? Anywhere from 12 hours to a full day? Were there any times you saw Mr. Combs and his guests after a King's night? Yes. And how would they typically appear? Tired. At the end of a King's night, what, if anything, would the assistants arrange for Mr. Combs and his guests? A good meal, a massage, or a drip like an IV? What was the purpose of an IV? To put them to sleep. I want to direct your attention to the binder that's closest to you. Okay. So these exhibits are text messages communication. Okay. So there are messages between Jonthan and other staff, Jane, Mr. Combs, and yeah, that's what they have in exhibits. Okay. Miss Miser continues with the questioning. This says Frank Black, yellow, and Frank Black, red. What does that mean? Frank Black is Mr. Combs' aliases, and he had two phones, so I saved them at my phone in the color case. What? So did he have a yellow phone and a red phone? Yes. And was Jane also in the group text? Yes. So these are the participants in the text. Is that right? Correct. So here's an example of a text communication. Um, and what did you say in the first text? The addition, Jonthan Perez, room 439. And here, why are you sending this text? From what I remember, to let them know that the hotel room was, and the room number and what name it was booked under. And were hotels often in your name or in other personal assistants' names? Yes. What did you say next? Just left two candles and a room phone in front of the room door. I'm only 9 minutes away if y'all need anything. Was this about a king's night? Potentially. Okay. They review another text. Who were the participants in this text? KK and Joey. So KK first says, checking in, how's the setup going? How much longer do y'all need? What do you understand her to be talking about? The setting up of a hotel room. Joey responds, it's going, should be done in 30 minutes. And then Christina says, okay, please keep me posted. List of what Jane wants for her hotel, maybe new outfits, shorts for him, size large, fruits, shakes, and juices. And how did you respond? Copy. We got fruit, shakes, and juices. I'm about to run to the store quick and send her outfit options. What store are you referring to? The adult store. And what kind of outfits are you talking about here? Like lingerie type of outfits for women. Christina responds, just send to me and I'll send to her for now. Thanks. Why did you understand her to be what did you understand her to be talking about? For me to send KK the images of the outfits and she would send them to Jane. How did you respond to Christina's message? I love the message. And then Christina says, is the room done yet? Joey says, bellman coming up to get our luggages. Christina says, how much longer till the room is done? How did you respond? Room is done, just trying to get all the bags back in the trunk, then going to the store. And what did you mean when you said room is done? That the setting up of the room is done. And what stores are you going to? The adult store. Christina then says, copy, let me know when y'all are on your way to the store. How did you respond? Copy, en route to store. Christina liked the message. More messages are being displayed. And again, I think the messages kind of show like an overview of how ingrained in different areas that the people were at. So here's another example of a message. Mr. Perez, Joey says, here, Ricky 40 away. Who is Ricky? Ricky is one of the IV people, like one, drip people. Did Mr. Combs have any other people who provided him IVs during this time period? Yes. And who were some of those people? There was various people. I mean, this was our main guy in Miami, but there was various people in LA. Was there an individual named Garrett? Yes. And then when Joey says Ricky 40 away, what do you understand him to be talking about there? That Ricky is 40 minutes away. Christina then says, Joey, how's cleanup? What did you understand him to be asking? The cleanup of the room. Joey then said slipped and fell twice, but calling Bell cart in about 10 minutes. Okay, Miss Miser continues with the questioning. Mr. Perez, I want to talk about another topic. Was there ever a time that you saw a video of Jane and someone else other than Mr. Combs? Yes. Remember approximately when this was? Maybe about a year into my employment? Where were you at the time you heard about this video? At Mapleton. How did it come about that you learned of the video? There was a videographer who was screaming the name of one of the assistants that was working at the time, and that assistant was Mr. Combs. So I went into the theater to see what the commotion was, and he showed me the video. And what was the videographer's name who showed you the video? Brandon. Where did you go after you heard Brandon yelling? I took the iPad and I went into the office. Where was Brandon at the time that you went to go meet him? In the theater. Was there anyone else in the theater with you? Yes. And did you end up watching the video? A portion of it. And what device was the video on? An iPad. Who generally used the iPad? The staff. And from what you saw, what did the video show? Jane and another man engaging in S activity? And was there anyone else in the video? Mr. Combs in the background? What did the other man look like? I didn't see him. It was a black man. Do you recognize that man? No. Who, if anyone, did you tell about the video? Mr. Combs and KK? Who did you tell first? Mr. Combs. How soon after seeing the video did you tell Mr. Combs? Maybe an hour or two? And what did you tell him? I told him the same story that I just told you, that the videographer had found a video on an iPad and that I was pretty sure it shouldn't be there. So I was bringing it to his attention so he could either delete it or just do whatever he wanted with it. How did he react? He was surprised. Did you have any further conversation with Mr. Combs about this video? No. You mentioned that you told KK. Is that right? Yes. How soon after you told Mr. Combs did you tell KK? It was the same day or whatever. Whenever she got to the house is when I told her. What did KK say to you in this conversation? She said that in the future, things like that, I should just bring it to her and she would communicate them to Mr. Combs. What did you tell KK about what was on the video? I can't remember exactly what I told her, but I gave her the general gist of the video, that it was Jane and another man. Did you tell her that Mr. Combs was in the video? I can't remember. Did there ever come a time when you spoke with KK about this video a second time? Yes. When approximately was that? Maybe 6 months after? Where were you when you had this conversation with KK? At Tristar in Miami. How did that conversation come about? KK said that she wanted to have a chat about something. So we went into the gym and she asked me to reiterate to her exactly what happened that day that I found the video. Everyone who was there where I was, just a rundown of the details. Did she say why she wanted you to reiterate this? She said that she got a call from someone outside of the company talking about the video in some capacity. And did you convey to her the same things you've been talking about today? Yes. Did you record that conversation, Mr. Perez? No. What was your understanding of whether that conversation was being recorded? I wasn't aware it was being recorded. So they're admitting a lot more evidence, and I can only assume is the evidence of this record, or at least this recorded conversation. And he had no clue he was being recorded. Let's get into this. Mr. Perez, I want to direct your attention to a disc which should be next to the binders. Okay, you see that? Yes. Could you pick it up? Yes. Did you review the disc in advance of your testimony? Yes. What does it contain? The audio from me and KK's conversation? How did you know that that's what was on the disc? Because I reviewed it. Did you also sign the disc? Yes. Mr. Perez, do you recognize these documents here? Yes. What are they? The transcripts from the audio transcription from me and KK's conversation about the video. And did you review these transcripts before testifying today? Yes. And they are an accurate transcript of what was on the recording on the CD you reviewed for government's exhibit? Yes. Okay. So those exhibits are offered, no opposition from Steele. So they start playing the audio. Could we start by playing the first 15 seconds of the recording, Miss Foster? So audio plays. Whose voice do you hear that, Miss Perez? KK. We continue playing. Stop right there. When Miss Coram says an outside person brought up something about it, what did you understand her to be referring to? Like someone from outside of the people who knew about the video? So someone who didn't work for Mr. Combs? Correct. Okay. Audio continues to play. Was that your voice on that recording just now? Yes. When you say Brandon the shooter, what did you mean by the shooter, the videographer? Did you ever learn what, if anything, was on the camera footage Miss Corum was referencing? No. Okay. So you just referenced PD. Who are you talking about there, Mr. Combs? Earlier you referenced Rob. Who is that? One of the other assistants at that time? And you also referenced Gio. Who is that? One of the videographers. Why did you not feel comfortable deleting the video? Because, like I said, I didn't want to delete it and then end up coming up later. And I didn't feel like it was my decision, like my choice to do anything with the video. What investigation are you referring to? So they keep playing the audio. What investigation are you referring to? I think that Mr. Combs thought he may have been compromised in some way. So when I spoke to KK on our original conversation, she said something about needing an investigation to be had in terms of whether or not he had been compromised in some way, in terms of what, like his data or his phone. And who ordered that investigation? I don't necessarily know if it was like, I don't really know if the what the investigation, if it even occurred. But KK mentioned that Mr. Combs wanted an investigation to happen regarding the video and how it got on that device. Okay. What did you mean when you were talking about it being filmed on that device? I mentioned to her that I thought that the video looked like it could have been filmed on that device. And the investigation you referred to earlier, was that an investigation by staff? I'm not sure. So they keep playing. Who is Dion? He was like one of the executives that worked for Mr. Combs. Who is talking here? Me and KK. Is this a continuation of that prior recording that we just listened to? Yes. Can we just pause it there? Was it true that no one else was in the theater besides you? And maybe Gio and Brandon? Chef K was also in the theater. Why did you not tell KK about Chef K? I didn't mention that she was in the theater the original time we spoke. So I just didn't mention it. Why did you not mention the original time that she was in the theater? I was just trying to diffuse it, minimize it. I guess the details, hoping that it wasn't going to become a big. Mr. Press, were these the two recordings we just listened to part of a larger conversation with KK? Yes. Aside from Chef KK not being in the theater, was anything else you told KK not true? No. Did you have any follow-ups with KK about this? No. And after these conversations with KK, did anyone else who worked for Mr. Combs ever bring up this video to you? Fahim. And when did Fahim bring up the video relative to your conversation? Maybe a few months later? Where were you when this conversation took place with Fahim? Me and Fahim were in a car. And what did Fahim say to you? He just said, "Hey, I never asked you what happened the day you found the video of Jane on the iPad. And how did you respond to Fahim?" I then told him the same story that I told KK and that we just heard. Had you ever told Fahim about the video before this conversation with him? No. Are you aware of how Fahim knew about the incident? No. Now, after that question, they decide to go to lunch and they break for lunch, right? But after lunch is when the defense brings up juror number 6, Donaldson specifically. And the court basically says, listen, we're going to talk about juror number 6 here after Perez's testimony, okay? So there was that. We were like, oh man, what's going to happen with juror number 6? Because that has been the conversation, I don't know, for the last, I want to say week, if not a couple days already. And Friday, we get to see exactly what happened with juror 6, but not before we get to Perez's statement. So hold on, because we're going to definitely read what happened to juror number 6. Let's go. Questioning continues. Do you recognize this, Mr. Perez? Yes. What is this, Mr. Combs' Gucci pouch? What was typically kept inside of Mr. Combs' Gucci pouch? Rugs and money? Would you mind pulling the mic just a little bit, so a little bit closer to you? Rugs and money. Oh, sorry. What kind of rugs? Coca-Cola, Special K, Mama, Addy, Zanny. And before King's Night, what, if any, responsibilities did you have related to the Gucci pouch? Can you rephrase? Sorry. What responsibilities, if any, did you have related to the Gucci pouch here? In relation to King's Night? Yes. Oh, just making sure that it was in Mr. Combs' personal backpack that would travel with him. Where typically was the Gucci pouch located? In his backpack. Was that backpack typically with Mr. Combs? Yes, sometimes. And when he went to the Kinks night, was it typically with him? Yes. Who is part of this conversation showing messages? Oh, it's between me and Rob, one of the old assistants. Okay. What dates were these sent? July 31st, 2022. So Rob says, "Yo, will you locate his Gucci pouch in his bathroom?" Here, when Rob says Gucci pouch in his bathroom, who did you understand Rob to be referring to? Mr. Combs. And how did you respond? Yes. What did Rob say next? Make sure it is all in there, please. If anything's out and around, kind of pack, just kind of stuff it back in, I guess. And does that finish LOL? LOL. What did you say in response? I zipped it up, no residue, and I didn't steal one Addy. What did you mean in the text? I zipped up the Gucci pouch uh, back up, and there was no drug residue. I didn't take any Adderall out of the pouch. Okay, so then more text messages are shown. What date is this text sent? October 10th, 2022. And what did you say? Hi, I just found items in the Balenciaga pouch that should never leave the Gucci pouch. What is the Balenciaga pouch? It's a pouch that we kept in Mr. Combs' car that had like personal hygiene items like Listerine, Advil, and just like personal toiletry items that we would have on the go. How did Joey respond here with an emoji? What did you say in response? Coca-Cola? Why did you say Coca-Cola? The emoji was like with the confused face, so I was clarifying what I meant by the item that I found in the Balenciaga pouch. And where should that Coca-Cola have been? In the Gucci pouch. And then Rob says in response, he probably needed it at PT. What did you understand him to be referring to? He was making a joke. What is PT? Physical therapy. Mr. Perez, as part of your employment, did you ever have a role in obtaining rugs? A handful of times. And what did you do generally? What do you mean? What did you do related to the rugs? Either purchase them or grab them from someone outside? And who asked you to purchase the rugs? Mr. Combs, one of the assistants? And who were you getting those rugs for? Mr. Combs. Did other personal assistants also purchase or grab rugs for Mr. Combs? I'm not sure. Mr. Perez, what rugs did you purchase or grab for Mr. Combs? Zanny, Coca-Cola, and Mal. Who did you get these rugs from? There were there was someone named Baby Girl and someone named Guido. And how did you learn of this person named Baby Girl and this person named Guido? Just from being around, just being in the assistant circle. And who told you about them? One of the assistants or Mr. Combs. How did you pay for the rugs when you were purchasing them? Cash. Where did you get the cash? Either from security or from Mr. Combs' Gucci pouch or top drawer. And if you were going to security, who from security would you ask for cash? Fahim. Would you submit receipts to Fahim for cash purchases? On occasion. More text messages are shown. February 15th of 2024. Could you read the message? Hi, Fa. Diddy has Don Trey pull out 1,200, 700 to Guido, and I'm about to get some food from the store for him with the remaining 500. I'll send the receipt. I didn't know Guido was even coming. Happened all too fast. You refer Fa here. Who is that? Fahim. What about Don Trey? One of the security guards. And who is Guido? A rug dealer? And why did 700 go to Guido? I'm assuming for rugs. Did you submit receipts to Fahim when you purchase rugs? No. Mr. Press, could you please read that message? Hi, can you pull 2,100? Guy coming tonight plus 1,524.60 my cash that I just spent while in LA. Still waiting on Tristar for my other funds. Then I wrote the total. And you mentioned Tristar. What is Tristar? Tristar is or was Mr. Combs' business managers. What did Tristar do for Mr. Combs? So they helped onboard employees and they help manage his homes and his overall money. Yes, my understanding. Who, if anyone, did you interact with from Tristar? Robin Greenhill. What was Robin Greenhill's role? I don't know what her exact role at Tristar is or was, but she was like our account manager. Mr. Perez, I want to direct your attention to June of 2024. Around that time, did you receive a FaceTime from Mr. Combs when he was with Jane? Yes. Where was Mr. Combs at the time of the FaceTime? At Jane's house. How did he get to Jane's? I brought him there. When you brought Mr. Combs to Jane's, what, if anything, did you do at Jane's? I can't recall. I know that I brought bags in, like bags, some of the toiletries, and an extra pair of clothes, food, drinks. After you brought Mr. Combs to Jane's house, where did you go? I went to where I was staying. How soon did Mr. Combs FaceTime you approximately after you dropped him off? A few hours later. When Mr. Combs FaceTimed you, what did you see on the FaceTime? Mr. Combs and Jane? And where did Mr. Combs and Jane appear to be? I'm not sure where they were. I'm assuming they were still at her house, but I'm not sure exactly where. And how did Mr. Combs appear on the FaceTime? Angry and annoyed? Could you see Jane on the FaceTime? Yes. Could you see her face? No. Why could you not see her face? She turned away from the camera. How was her body position as compared to the camera? So the camera's here and she was facing like this way. And so you're facing the other direction from the camera. Yeah, facing, yeah, not fully the other direction, just turned away. Okay, so she was turned away? Yeah. What, if anything, did Mr. Combs say to you on the FaceTime? He was asking me to confirm whether or not another female had been on a trip that we went on the week prior. And what was Mr. Combs' tone of voice when he was talking? It was raised. I believe he also mentioned that Jane had been accusing him of another female on the trip on the week prior. So it seemed like they had been arguing. And how did you respond to Mr. Combs? I let him and Jane know that there was not a female on the trip. And he thanked me and we hung up. And was that true? Yes. Approximately how long did the FaceTime last? Maybe 20 seconds? Did Jane say anything on the FaceTime? No. Did you ever see her face? No. Had you ever had any other calls like this with Mr. Combs before? Well, FaceTime he is how we primarily communicate. But I had never been involved in an argument that he was having with the guests. No. How did you react to the FaceTime? Just like normal. I mean, I had a pretty normal reaction, I think. I understood that they were arguing about, and I gave the answer that I had. Okay. And after that, did your FaceTime end? Yes. What happened after the FaceTime? Well, after the FaceTime call, I can't remember if Mr. Combs called me again or texted me, but I let Fahim and KK know that Mr. Combs and the guests were fighting and that I was going to go pick him up. Did you end up picking him up at that time? No. So then texts are shown as exhibits, and this is a conversation between Jonthan Perez and KK. Who is in the chat with you, Mr. Perez? Me and KK. And what is the date of the text? June 18, 2024. And what does it say the time is? 5:19 p.m. And what did KK say in the text? Heads up, PD going to guest house tonight. What did you understand KK to be referring to here? That Mr. Combs was going to Jane's house. Is this the same day as the FaceTime you talked about earlier? Yes. What is this? A group text between me and KK and Fahim. When was the first text sent? January 19, 2024. You just said January. I'm sorry, June 19, 2024. In the first text, you say, me and PD en route to a location. Is that where? Who was that at that location? Jane. What did you say next? Heads up, him and guests are fighting. I'm about to head back and pick him up. Did you send this before or after your FaceTime with Mr. Combs? After. Looking at this top text here, what did you say here? Just the normal her being jealous over other women and yelling at him? And what time did you send this text message? 5:42 a.m. And how long prior to this text message was this? About half an hour? And here you say that Jane was yelling at Mr. Combs. Did you actually see that? No. Aside from the FaceTime, did you ever talk to Jane about the fight? No. Did you ever talk to Mr. Combs about the fight? No. Did you have any other knowledge about the fight other than the FaceTime? No. Why did you send the second text message? After I sent the first one about them fighting, KK called me and asked me to clarify what fighting meant. What did you say to KK when she asked you to do that? I told her that they were arguing on the FaceTime and what the FaceTime call was about. And then I sent the text. What did you say on the text? I just heard from him. He said not to come, all good. And who are you talking about here? Mr. Combs. So then another group text is discussed. And this one is with Fahim, KK, and Perez. What does Christina say in the text? Hi, can someone go pick up PD ASAP, please? And when she says PD, who are you referring to? Mr. Combs. Where was Mr. Combs at this time at Jane's house? And how did you respond? I like the message. What did you say next? He's asking me to bring him his cash. Is it at the house? He wasn't sure how much you were holding for him. He said he thinks 10. Let me know. I'm going to head out short. Who is the he you were talking about? Mr. Combs. How did Fahim respond? Robin never gave us the cash. She said it was too late. We left that day, but we'll get more dropped off today. We don't have more on hand, but trying to get more now. And who is Robin? Robin Greenhill from Tristar. And how did you respond to this message? I liked the message, and more messages are shown. And this is in a group text. Is it January? I'm sorry, June 20th, 2024. And what did you say? Hi, Fa, putting PD on this text with us. Need 3,500 cash ASAP for his gas. I'm going to take it to her. Let me know how to get it. And what guest are you referring to here? Jane. And how did Fahim respond? Copy, I can give it to you now. What did you say in this message? Can you leave it in an envelope with security and I'll come grab in a little and take it to her. Thank you. How did you respond? Okay. Mr. Perez, did you meet with the government before testifying today? Yes. And at some points in the meeting, did you discuss what might have happened with the money that was being discussed in the text? Yes. Sitting here today, do you have an independent, clear memory of what actually ended up happening with that money separate and apart from the text? No. Miser asked the final questions. You said you left your employment in September 2024. Is that right? Yes. Why did you leave? There's a lot of going on personally for Mr. Combs, and there wasn't a lot of communication around what was happening. So I thought it was a good time to leave to hopefully avoid the situation like this. When was the last time you talked to Mr. Combs? The day that he was arrested. How did you feel about Mr. Combs now? I feel great about him, the way I felt when I was leaving my employment. Okay. No further questions. Cross examination by Steele. Okay, guys. So now we are at cross, and here is Steele. He is doing the cross. Now, the cross kind of starts very interesting. Something about, have you ever seen Mr. Combs cry? And Jonthan Perez is like, no. So then he brings in an exhibit to refresh his recollection, and he still can't remember. Has he ever motivated you? Has he ever been motivating? Like those kinds of questions. I want us to get right to the other questions where I'm like, all right, we're going somewhere. This whole him crying, it's neither here nor there. But I have, like I said, reviewed the transcripts beforehand. So we spend more time on the relevant parts of this whole trial. Okay, let's go. I can't remember if he was crying, but this refreshes my memory as to the fact that he was upset that day. Yes. And let me ask you to do something. If it goes to refresh your memory, that's fine. But 3606 again, the second page. If you could just look at whatever the top says on the left side, does that refresh your memory by any chance about Mr. Combs crying that day? It does not. Okay, fine. All right. So again, for whatever reason, Steele was trying to drive the point that sometime in October 26, 2023, Mr. Combs was crying. All right. Let's keep going. Okay, so then Steele drives the questioning to like access, in terms of like the house and things, right? To Jonthan Perez. The question starts: other people, to your knowledge, had equal access to that bedroom besides you and Mr. Combs? Yes. And what about the bathroom connected to that bedroom. Same thing. Have you ever been in the bathroom several times? Yes. And how about the closet in the bedroom bathroom? Did you have free access to that? Yes. And when I say you, Mr. Perez, I'm not just saying you know other people. Lots of people had access to Mr. Combs' bedroom, bathroom closet. True? Correct. At any time, did you ever see any firearms in or around that bathroom? No. At any time, did you ever see firearms around the bathroom closet? No. Did you ever see Mr. Combs with a firearm? No. In the years of employment with him? No. Now, there are firearms around the property, true? Yes. The only firearms I've ever seen were with security. Mr. Steele continues, and it may be unfortunate, but it's the reality that certain people need to have security with them. Is that true? Yes. And there's a lot of wealth in that house, right? Yes. By that, I mean expensive cars, jewelry, furniture, paintings, etc. True? Yes. The fact that there were search warrants in March, that means you continue to work with Mr. Combs even after the execution of those search warrants for approximately 6 months. Does that sound right? Yes. So then they get into the conversation about Jane. And you know from her, Steele continues questioning, and you know from her that she wanted to actually marry Sean or Mr. Combs. Is that true? I'm not sure. Okay, you don't remember having those types of conversations with her? No. Okay, and you mentioned King Nights. Yes. And that's nights being set up by either at a hotel or somebody else's home for Mr. Combs and a girlfriend to spend time together. True? Yes. And you call that, I think, personal time. Is that how you feel about that? Yes. Because Mr. Combs is a very busy person. You were around him. Is that true? Yes. I mean, you were with him from morning to night when you were working. Is that all true? Yes. And that was the way you looked at it. It was personal to Mr. Combs. It was his personal time. Is that true? Yes. And you mentioned something that I think I'm quoting. If I'm not quoting, I'm not trying to misquote you, but you said you were working out of Mr. Combs' home. Sometimes personal matters and business were mixed or something to that effect. Yes. And by that, you're saying that sometimes, even though it's not in your employment, you do things that are in personal nature for Mr. Combs. Is that true? Yes. So there's an objection from the government and it's overruled. Is that accurate? Yes. And by that, personal, would you classify it as personal or work related, setting up the King Knights? Personal. And you would consider it personal or work related that few times, I'm not saying that it's many times, purchasing or obtaining, transporting, or taking possessions of rugs for Mr. Combs. Personal. And you're proud, and you're not proud you did that. I'm not saying that it's great judgment, but you did it just because it was really Mr. Combs' personal habit. That's how you looked at it, right? Yes. It has nothing to do with your work, right? No. You weren't getting paid to buy rugs or set up king nights in hotel rooms, right? No. You just did it because you're a nice person, right? Yes. And in addition to that, you helped Jane. She trusted your fashion sense. Is that right? Yes. In fact, she trusted you more than she trusted herself at times to buy certain things for her and the like for dresses and like, right? Yes. She would ask you to go shopping for her. True? Yes. And what she wanted to do was impress Mr. Combs and get your thoughts on it so that she can look her best. That's what she told you. Objection, sustained. Questioning continues. The fact that you would go over and set up these hotel or room or homes with the lighting and the baby oil and all these things, rugs, whatever, the food, the drink, the beverages, the lighting, all of that. You would do it, and then you would be away, and Mr. Combs would be on his personal time for, I think you said, usually 12 to 24 hours. True? Yes. And then sometimes you even help clean up, right? Yes. And if there was a hotel, you did that because you're a professional. You're courteous. It was not nice, maybe, to the hotel work to have to clean up. You know stains from baby oils or whatever. And so you guys went in first and tried to assist. Yes. Now the questioning goes into the iPad. The iPad. Remember the iPad incident where we were heard the recording with you and the person you called KK? Yes. Remember that? Remember that, okay? Now, that iPad was actually used by coworkers of yourself, right? Yes. And it was like a business iPad. It was used for music, it was used for directing things that people can actually use who are working for the business, right? Yes. But on this one occasion, there was personal. That's how you understood there was a personal matter. It was S recordings of Jane and another person, Mr. Combs, you said, on I'll call it the business iPad. Is that fair? Fair to say? That's how you understood it? Yes. And that's why it was a concern, because this personal matter, this personal private S, King Knight happened to get to a business iPad. Is that really the issue? Yes. And when KK, we have it on recording, and the ladies and gentlemen of the jury were able to hear it with your assistance. She was interested in understanding how did that iPad obtain this personal data. Is that your understanding? Objection. Okay, give me 1 sec, as the court rephrase. Okay, what is your understanding that the inquiry asked of you from your viewpoint was because this personal matter was a business iPad? Is that really what it was about? Yes. And the that actual depiction, that S tape, that was not connected to the business, right? That was personal. You made that clear. Is that true? Yes. Can you put, if you could just think about your 3 years of working with Mr. Combs, if you were to put a percentage on it, if you could just help us, just take your time and think about it. How much time you dedicated in the mix that you talked about for personal errands or matters that you did for Mr. Combs versus the business that you put in your time into? How would you break down the percentage? How much time for your personal versus business? Like in terms of personal matters that we discuss here today? Yes, I'd say 1%. Okay, so the rug combined with the King Knights combined with the iPad type of incident, that would be 1%. The other 99% you're doing work that helps the business. True? Yes. And although you had a good relationship with Jane from your observation, did KK not have a good relationship with Jane? That is correct. In fact, KK tried to avoid Jane. Is that true from your observation? From my observation, yes. From being around Mr. Combs, did you have the ability to observe his savvy or his knowledge of working computers and iPhones, iPads? Yes. And how would you describe Mr. Combs' ability and knowledge of those items, working with those items? He was not the most proficient when it came to technology. So we set it up a lot. We set up all the technology and stuff for him. And it was to that point, so basic, that Mr. Combs would need help connecting to Bluetooth. Is that fair to say? Yes. Okay, and that's pretty elementary. I'm not insulting him. That's the truth, right? Yes. Okay, with the recorded communication that we heard going to you and KK, you clearly didn't know you were being recorded, right? Correct. But you were recorded and you told the truth except for you didn't want to get somebody else potentially involved. Is that true? Correct. And there's nothing on towards that. It was just an internal, these are my words, internal investigation. How did this happen? Is that true? Yes. Nothing to do with obstructing law enforcement or anything like that. Is that true? Correct. Now, speaking of investigations, clearly you knew that Mr. Combs was under investigation, at least, if not earlier, in March of 2024, when the federal authorities executed that search warrant at Mr. Combs' homes, right? Yes. Do you remember going to KK and inquiring as a coworker, as your boss, and saying, what do I do if the authorities reach out to me? Yes. And the advice you got and you followed is tell them the complete truth, right? Yes. And that came from KK, right? Yes. Mr. Combs didn't ask you in any way to lie to law enforcement, did he? No. Nobody would Mr. Combs himself or anybody else ask you to obstruct or don't talk about King Knights or rugs or anything. True? Correct. In fact, it was the opposite. It was all just the truth, right? Correct. And so I know that you were asked questions by the prosecutors about an order that you were given today to tell the truth. But that's what you've done, right? Yes. And that's what was told by Mr. Combs and other people with Mr. Combs. True? I'm sorry. That's what was told to you to do by Mr. Combs and other people like KK. True? Yes. Okay, you mentioned Frank or Frankie Santella. Do you remember that? Yes. He actually transitioned, and because I believe you might have said it, actually the music manager, right? Yes. And while working for Mr. Combs, you were involved with helping create an album. Is that true? Yes. And that album Mr. Combs worked on very hard. Do you remember that? Yes. In fact, you would go to the studio with him at times. Yes. And that album was very, very well received by the public. True? Yes. Okay. Objection by the government overruled. Is it fair to say, from your experience, your observation, that Mr. Combs is a very hardworking person? Yes. And you mentioned that KK and Mr. Combs had a very close relationship. Do you remember saying that? Yes. Earlier today to the jurors, you're not suggesting that it was an sexual in nature, are you? No. Okay, you're just saying that they were worked hand in hand and they were like best friends and coworkers. True? Yes. And you being around Mr. Combs, you've never seen him strike a woman while you were there. Is that true? Correct. You've never seen him strike anyone, right? Correct. You said on in a text message, or you said, I'm sorry, on the recording with KK when she recorded you. I believe if you remember, you said something, I found something personal on an iPad. Do you remember that? Yes. And that's exactly what you're talking about. That had no reason to be on the work. That was a personal matter for Mr. Combs, right? Yes. And in your experience with other celebrities, do they sometimes, when they're going out to public places like a hotel, sometimes they put hotel names in someone else's register? Yes. Now you talked about Tristar. Do you remember that? Yes. And Tristar is basically, you said, the business manager for Mr. Combs. Fair to say? Yes. I think that's how you describe them. So you would have to submit any type if you wanted reimbursement. You would have to submit receipts to TriStar. Is that true? Yes. Okay. Do you remember the book that I gave you that's actually right there on your hands? Okay. So they're looking at exhibits. And is this a typical way that you would support your expenses to TriStar? Yes. And this is just one example. You did this a lot. Is that true? Yes. And this one just happens to be from right before Thanksgiving of 2022, right? Yes. And this is just listening. And this is just listing. These are things that I did and I paid cash for. Basically, is that right? Things that I paid for personally, yes. And then if you scroll down, just give the jurors a sense. You have to document with receipts as best as you can. What is this? Why you were asking for this money back, right? Yes. And if you scroll down just to show the jurors, these would be the types of receipts that you would save to show the expense. True? Yes. And you did that because TriStar would not cut you a check or reimburse something to you unless you had backup. Is that true? Yes. But if you didn't have backup, then you would explain it away. But it's best to have the receipt, right? Yes. And that's because this wasn't just combined personal funds and business funds. This was, you have to support, is this a business expense? True? Yes. So they get into a sidebar and they go back and forth on unredacted exhibits. And some of these exhibits include conversations between the Jane Doe and the witness, to buy her things, to get things. And they go into a conversation in the sidebar about charting certain exhibits and whatnot. We're going to review, we're going to move on from here because it would take us forever on this video. So let's move on to the questioning. And the questioning continues where exhibits are shown of this witness and Jane communicating. This is a communication between who? Me and Jane. January 20, 2023. Does that look right? If you can look at it on the screen? Yes. Okay. And what did you say to Jane? Hi, sweet. I refresh everything, pack shoes and dust bags, labeled outfits and Ziplocs, and also have a bag of undies for him, including Tom Ford. I'll send this bag with the boys to your place. I'm the only one who has had eyes on this stuff. And then questioning continues. And then Jane emphasized that you wrote what you wrote on the first line. And then And then OMG, stop it with exclamation point. No way. You are amazing. What the exclamation point with emojis? Our little secret. Okay. Listen, I think they're switching now to a hotel. He just called me and said he may want to come here. So Frank is aware. Maybe text him just so you're fully updated with the question mark. Would hate if the things got Ubered here, etc., etc. And then we didn't need them here. And you wrote copy. They're figuring out our hotel. I'll have the boys bring the bags and leave it when set up. It still continues. And you are the best with emojis. Beyond appreciated. I thought I was organized. I love that it's Ziplocs and Tom Ford for me with 3 E's. So this is a setting up for a king night. Is that your understanding? Yes. And Jane is communicating with you, telling you that she would like and thanking you for your efforts, right? Yes. And she's helping coordinate the night. Yes. And then the lower part of the page, now it's a different date. See it's February now 10th, 2023. Yes. And what did you write to Jane? Hi, babe. Chef Patrick here making you avocado toast with fried egg on top of it. Jane says, hi, good morning. Amazing. With an exclamation point. Okay, cool. Driver is going to be there by 11:20. I'll be down by 11:45. TYSM exclamation point. Can I request some OJ and hot tea with honey, just like chamomile? To go, please, with a heart emoji, right? Yes. And you responded, I love the message. And then you responded on the next page. I put a bag of few things outside his bedroom door that I think are yours from hotel. Also, let me know if you want any of this sexy stuff before I bring it back later. You can roll your bag out when you are ready and I'll take it down. And the response by Jane, hey, he wants you. And you like that. Correct? Correct. And then Jane wrote on the same day of the afternoon, hey, love, so the iron for my hair lady, her salon, Addie is, and then it gives an address. Thank you so much. Then you respond, correct? Yes. What did you say? I wrote heart emojis and wrote, have a good flight, an amazing dinner tonight. I want the pics of Joy gang in their dress. And then Jane wrote to you, that was so cute how you said that. Exclamation point 3 times. Yes, hey, hey. Thank you, my love, with an emoji and then a phone number, correct? To the hairdresser? Yes. And this is just typical. This is not how Jane would respond with you to these nights at her home or hotels. Is that true? Yes. So Steele starts asking questions more so about, messages, about Jane, how does she interact? They start reading it. It's a good portion of this back and forth. At some point, the government kind of like there's several points where the government is objecting, but they do eventually move on to redirect. Okay, and so they move on to redirect. And Miss Miser, of course, some of the questions, for example, that she is wanting to redirect was, I think the biggest one that jumped to me was when she started, Mr. Perez, you were asked about some conversations with Jane. Is that right? Yes. Where Jane was asking you to get certain things. Yes. And was getting those things for Jane part of your job? Yes. And was your title personal assistant or a business assistant? Personal assistant. So your job included doing personal things for Mr. Combs? Yes. Did you, for example, write cards for his girlfriend sometimes? Yes. Did you sometimes get them flowers? Yes. Did you sometimes buy them gifts? Yes. And do you remember being asked about king nights on cross examination? Yes. And who told you to set up those king nights? KK. Did you set up those king nights for free? No. Was that part of your job? Yes. You ever Did you ever set up king nights on vacation? No. Okay. So just giving you guys an idea of like the line of questioning, right? That it was kind of like I felt it seemed like Steele was trying to gray the lines between personal and business, and through his questioning, and the government came back and was like, "This is, let's be very clear about these aspects about what's going on." Okay. So then they have a recross, and Steele's back on the stand. Okay. And it starts. You wrote on Mr. Combs Exhibit 3604 that was just shown to you, personal for Mr. Combs or PD, or baby oil and snacks for Mr. Combs or PD. You don't know, you do, whether that money was charged personally to Mr. Combs. No, you just got reimbursed for it, but you wrote the truth, right? Yes. And then you were asked about where you paid to set up for King Nights. Remember that? The question just now? Yes. You're on salary, right? Yes. And then Tristar, going back to the baby oil, the personal expenses for Mr. Combs, they're the people who designated the accounting on the monies, right? You don't do that. Yes. Okay. So from here, they have another sidebar. All right. And the court speaks on this and says, so in the transcripts based on Mr. Steele's cross examination, there was a reference to XXX gang in their dresses. That's not in any way a reference to the witness's name, is it? Miss Comey speaks, Your Honor, I think it's in reference to her middle name. We ask it be redacted in the transcript that gets released. Thank you for catching that. Is that something that we need to do right now? No. Is that an immediate issue in terms of what is coming next? So at this point, the government has no further witnesses for today, right? No, for today. We'll offer these exhibits, but we're done. Okay. So no more exhibits. They're done with the recross of Jonthan Perez. All right. Now, this is what the transcript says. Then we're done for the day. We'll release the jurors and we'll address the issues that have come up. Just wanted to check. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to get right into the situation with the juror, because I have a lot of questions about what happened. I feel like I'm hearing different things. I mean, shout out to BJ. She did a video and I know she addressed some of it. So, she would be a great source to go to. But let's get into see what these transcripts say about this juror. Let's go. The court begins. Let's first begin with the issue concerning the juror. Just starting with the standard that applies. And so they name a case. District Court have broad discretions under Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 26C to replace a juror at any time before the jury retires if the court finds that a juror is unable or disqualified to perform their duties. Removal of the juror is the prerogative of the court and does not require the consent of any party. Moreover, the Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure do not require any inquiry prior to the dismissal of the juror. In discussing the standards applicable to the review of the district court decision, the court in FISO notes that a reviewing court should not disturb the trial's judge's exercise of discretion in dismissing a juror unless there's a bias or prejudice to the defendant. Prejudice in this context, the court clarified, exists when the discharge is without factual support or for a legally irrelevant reason. While most of the case that has been cited involve requests to dismiss a juror from the defendant, that is not always the case. Always, the court's role is to maintain the integrity of the process, ensure fairness, and confirm that jurors that hear the case will follow its instructions and dutifully apply the law to the facts impartially. All right, so more cases are cited. In the case, the district court dismissed a juror after the juror was observed listening and watching a proceeding not meant for the jury. When questioned about what had happened based on the conduct, the district court had reasonable cause to dismiss the juror. The district court confirms that even a brief hearing was not required under those circumstances, again citing in the Second Circuit decision in Fazio. That takes us to the circumstances of this case. Now, in the morning, when we addressed this, I had indicated views that based on what was in the record, I had a question as to whether it met whether it was sufficient to dismiss the juror. We had a colloquy among the parties, and Ms. Steiner had indicated that on the government's view, based on close review of the transcripts, there was more than sufficient information to dismiss the juror. And so during the lunch break, and some of the other breaks we had, I took a close look at both of the transcripts from the colloquy in the robing room, as well as the transcripts from the voir dire proceeding. And so let's start there. First of all, to address any suggestions of bias, the court previously Previously, in the court morning noted that there is no evidence whatsoever, no basis for any charges of any claims of biases. The way in which this issue came up was simply an offhand conversation that the juror had with a member of the jury department, which was innocent enough. And that is described at the transcripts on page 4950 through 4951. It was simply the answer to a question in conversation where the juror indicated that he had recently moved to New Jersey. Those are the words of the juror. He further indicated on questioning from the court that he had moved in with his girlfriend. He said it may not be permanent, but that is where I've been staying for the last couple of weeks. So that's what the juror initially said. He further indicated that he had been staying there, meaning the place in New Jersey, most of the time. That's on transcript page 4953. That is what the juror initially said. Then a long break while counsel conferred with their respective teams and clients to confirm the discussion whether any further questions should be asked of the juror. Each side came back and they had some follow-up questions. The juror, meanwhile, was outside waiting in the hallway. When the juror returned, the court asked some of the questions that the parties had requested. So the discussion continued on transcript page 4959. Now, here, when the jurors were asked about the apartment that he previously had in New York, the court asked, "You're still staying there?" And the juror said yes. The court asked, "How many nights per week did you stay there?" The juror answered, 4 to 5, mostly during the week. I've been working Monday through Friday. I work. So between the breaks here, the juror started by saying that he had moved to New Jersey, moved in with his girlfriend, and that is where he was staying for the last couple of weeks, and also saying that he stays there most of the time. After the break, when the parties were discussing what further inquiry was appropriate, the juror said that actually he was spending 4 to 5 nights in New York in his New York apartment, mostly during the week. Now, on further questioning about the juror's child, whether she lived in New Jersey apartment, the juror was asked, "Has she always lived in the New Jersey apartment?" And the juror answered, "She was born in New Jersey." Yeah. And so the court asked, "She was born in New Jersey, so she's been living there?" And the juror said, "Yeah." And then you've been in New York, meaning the juror. And the juror said, "Yes." And now this is the court. And then now your girlfriend has an apartment in New Jersey. So that's where your daughter is living? And the juror answered right. So, in this questioning, the juror clearly indicated that he had been previously living in New York, but then was moving into the New Jersey apartment to where his daughter was then living, and had been living because it was the question the court had asked. As to the portions of the transcripts, the government, after receiving this transcript, noted that in their Von dire, this juror had answered in response to the very simple and straightforward question of where do you live and who do you live with? I live in the Bronx. I live with my fiance and my baby daughter. Now, there's a couple of problems there. That's when the juror was asked in the roving room where his daughter lives, and he indicated that his daughter lives in New Jersey with his, he said, girlfriend. But the court assumed that the fiance is the girlfriend. So there's an inconsistency between the Von dire transcript and the roving room transcript on that particular issue. The other hand, and separate inconsistency, is that in the roving room transcripts, uh, when explaining the living situation of the juror in New York, he indicated that in New York he lived in an apartment with his aunt. But in the Von dire transcript, when asked about who he lived with, he identified his fiance and daughter, who in the roving room transcript indicated lived in New Jersey, not in New York, but omitted the aunt who did live in New York, according to the juror in the roving room transcript. So within the transcript from the roving room proceeding, there are several inconsistencies. And now, more importantly, between the transcript and the transcript of the Von dire proceeding, there are additional inconsistencies as detailed in the government's letter. There are also separate issues concerning some of the information that they pointed out there. I'll just direct the parties to that information that is repeated in the government's submission. Now, where does that leave us? The issue here is where there is some suggestion that either the juror was unable to follow simple instructions and answer simple questions, or if there was any effort to shade the truth or be deceptive about matters that were inquired upon, both in the Von Dyer proceeding, which is a critical part of this case, where the parties have the chance to address issues that were central to the qualifications of the juror, as well as potential bias or other things that might be important to the exercise of the party's preemptory challenges, as well as any application to exclude jurors for cause. These are serious questions about the juror's candor and the juror's ability to follow the court's instructions. And when we get to that point of the case later, the ability of the juror to be able to apply the law to the facts clearly given the discrepancies in the record thus far. It is this for those reasons that the court does not feel that further inquiry of the juror is necessary. But put aside that neither side advocated for such an inquiry, and the defense raised deep concerns if the juror was further inquired of. The reason why we have alternate jurors in this case is to address the potential situation of a juror as to whom there are concerns about either their ability to give honest answers to questions, their ability to follow the rules, and so what the court is concerned about, even if as a technical matter, this juror would be qualified to be a juror. Is that the changing answers and inconsistencies given the court's worry about deception and lying, which further implicates the veracity of other answers that the juror answered during the Von Dyer process, including about the myriad of questions that go to the heart of the case. And even as to the issue we are addressing, it seems like a trivial matter in one sense, but the issue that came up and the only reason why the court had a discussion about it is that there's a concern at the time that it goes to the question of the jurors' basic qualifications to serve under the criteria that's spelled out in the governing statute 28 USC 1865. Even if the juror is, as a technical matter, qualified, omission or inconsistencies as to a basic question as to where you live raises serious questions concerning the propriety of maintaining this juror. Again, the purpose of having alternate jurors is to maintain the integrity of the process so that all sides in this case can be comfortable that the jurors that are deciding this case have no questions about whether they can fairly and impartially apply the rules of law of the court to the facts of this case, to consider the evidence in a fair way, and to follow the instructions of the court. Where there is a question like this on this record raised as to those points, removal of the jury is required to this court's view. And so, for that reason, the juror will be dismissed, and we will inform the juror so that he does not return on Monday. Okay, Mr. Donaldson for the defense speaks. Judge, may we have a record, please? Court says yes. Donaldson speaks. First of all, I think we of course, we lodge our objection to the court's decision. But let me just make a quick record. As an initial matter, we did not want the juror questioned, not because we didn't believe that there was a complete clarity on the record related to his house or residence, but because we didn't want the court to send a chilling effect to the juror to what we believe the government was asking regarding where he lived and how his employment has resident requirements. That was our concern because that would, in our opinion, literally chill this juror in case the court had decided he could stay. So that was our concern about asking the question. Relating to bringing the juror back, to be clear, I'm inclined to believe that there are answers are not as significant as to the ability to serve at the court. I'm going to say why. I don't believe that where we reside, New York versus New Jersey, and how a person sometimes has fiance, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, whoever, who lived in New Jersey, and then they go back and forth. Since the juror has indicated he lives in New York and goes back to see his fiance or girlfriend in New Jersey, that is my experience, a very, 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 very common thing, particularly in New York and New Jersey. Very often people have loved ones or girlfriends or boyfriends who live in New York. and then go there 4 times a week, but they live where they live. The juror indicated he lived here when he was sworn. He goes back and forth to New Jersey, which is normal. And I don't know when that changed, or if it changed, or if there's something he can explain. I think he should have the opportunity to explain. Like my colleague said this morning, these jurors have been particularly attentive for approximately 4 weeks or 5 weeks. They have sacrificed, I think, a great deal to be on this jury. Number 6, in my opinion, has been awake. I can't say that for all of them. Has been awake every day for 5, 6 hours, listening attentively to evidence. I think, and I disagree with the court respectfully, I do not believe that this particular juror cannot perform his duties. I do believe that his participation in the court, in the jury, will maintain the integrity. I do believe that he will be able to follow instructions and apply the law. I don't think that there's anything on the record that says he will not. The fact that he has some, and the court is saying inconsistencies, I'm concerned that the court is equating inconsistencies with lying. I'm concerned that the court is equating inconsistencies with the possibility of being untruthful or shading the truth. I don't think that this is the case. I think this particular juror answered the question as truthfully as he could. I think we put questions to this juror in the back, and we are, as attorneys in the court, analyzing his answers in a way that produce inconsistencies. And that may be true, but I don't think they are indicative of him not being truthful or trying to hide something from the court. I think if we bring him out here and ask him questions without asking questions related to his job, I think we can come to some understanding of what really happened. I think it's worth it, particularly to the defendant, that he be given the opportunity, because clearly he has come here every day. Clearly he has been here on time. Clearly he has stayed here until 5, sometimes later. Clearly he wants to be on the jury, and he dedicated time to be here. I think these questions and answers are not of the magnitude that would discharge him from this jury. I know that the court started early with how this came up, and I appreciated that part aside. I appreciate the court saying that the issue came up accidentally, innocently, etc., etc. That is all true. I don't doubt that. And I appreciate the court saying there was no bias and the prosecution did everything they were supposed to do from the jury selection on through. I understand that. I'm not disagreeing with the court specifically on that. But what I will say, and I will have to say, I feel obligated to say, and that is that I have been here in this district court for 25, 30 years. I have had a lot of trials in this district, particularly with some people in this group and other persons. And this is the first time I can say in the 25 years we've had this type of diverse jury in this district. It hasn't happened in my 25, 30 years practicing. I think we are moving in the right direction. As the courts have stated, I think my colleague provided the court a letter. The U.S. versus Slaughter indicated that we have been going in the opposite direction since 1990 in this particular district when it comes to Black and Hispanic jurors. But whatever reason, the process that this court used for us to get a jury worked. And it worked wonderfully in that we got a diverse jury. How this happened is one thing, but the result of what's going to happen if we take this juror off on this record, the result, in my opinion, going backwards. Now, it is not my intention. It's not. It's clearly not. No one is saying that's what's happening, but I would be reluctant to say we've taken strides to get a point where we could get a diverse jury, and we are now going to do something that will result in the diversity of that juror being shortened. The part is important to me, too. I believe my client, and two, I believe the defense table, and two, and I'm sure the prosecutors, we don't want to be doing things that appear to take steps backwards. I'm not saying we're doing it intentionally, but I think it's important to note that. So, with the So, with the record that we have, and I know the court, I've been watching the court for 6 weeks take great steps to make sure everything is done properly. And I've been actually quite amazed at how you do that. I don't know how you do that on the fly like that. And it's been incredible to watch. However, in this particular situation, I think that is the least we can do is bring the juror back out and make sure that we make sure the best we can that we are coming to the conclusions of that he is unable to, I think the elements are unable to follow the court's instructions or apply the law properly. If we're going to that conclusion based on the answers that he gave, I think it's important for us to make sure that's the right conclusion because he's been here. He's clearly wants to be here. I think one of the factors that the prosecution was arguing is the reason there's not enough black and Hispanic jurors is because black and Hispanic jurors don't answer the call enough. That was their reasoning. And that was found okay by the court. Well, he did answer the call. He's here. He wants to be here. And he's been here for 4 to 5 weeks. To kick him off now without being sure what's going on, I think in my opinion is just my opinion. It's not anything else, but in my opinion doesn't show the appearance that we want to show. And now I think that's important. We have to be doing what we think is the right thing to do all the time. And we must also have the appearance that we're doing the right thing all the time. If the man came here, which he did, he sat in the jury, which he did, he has been here 5 to 6 weeks, which he has. We can all do those things. And I think we have to make sure what we are concluding is correct before we dismiss this juror. Court says, all right, anything from the government? From Ms. Steiner. Your Honor, I have nothing to add to Your Honor's ruling, as we did indicate earlier this morning. As Your Honor has weighed out very carefully on the record, we do think the record is complete on these facts and that no additional inquiry is required. I do want to respond to Mr. Donaldson, to what Mr. Donaldson is suggesting. As Your Honor is aware, and all of the parties are aware, we have a very diverse jury in this case, which is a wonderful thing. And Mr. Donaldson is suggesting that we make a decision where based on race. And the important thing in a situation such as this one, as Your Honor noted, is to ensure the integrity of the proceeding, which requires us and the court to do the hard work of establishing whether or not there is reasonable cause to dismiss this juror because of the lack of candor with the court. And I think Your Honor has more than outlined a sufficient basis for that finding. I will also note, Your Honor, that and it's true, Mr. Donaldson has noted that the jurors have been very attentive, has come on time, and will say also to compliment this jury, they really have been showing up on a timely manner. I think all the jurors have been paying close attention, including the alternates. So we have no reason to doubt the ability of an alternate or any of the other jurors to continue on this case and to fulfill their obligation. All right. So, Mr. Donaldson, court speaks. I heard you. I hear the concerns that you're raising in the terms of the issues that I raised in terms of the discrepancies in the transcripts. What you noted is we're talking about where the juror lives. And in Yvonne Dyer, it was, I think, literally one of the first two questions in the group. Questions, which is where do you live and who do you live with? As you noted, these are pretty straightforward questions, and people have a lot of situations that would be responsive to those to the question. So if the juror had indicated that he was sharing time between the Bronx and New Jersey, or that he explained the situation in a way, shape, or form that would be something, I think no one would have had an issue with that. The problem is that in Von Dyer, the juror was pretty categorical. He said, I live in the Bronx and I live with my fiance and my baby daughter. And those are simple questions that anyone can answer and has no reason to answer in any different way unless there's an effort to try to get on the jury. That's the only reason why you would say anything that would be inaccurate about a particular line of questioning, because it doesn't have any other bearing. No one would think it would have any other bearing other than on the qualifications to be on a juror in a case that's pending in the Southern District of New York. And so that's sort of the starting place there. And then we get to what happened when we had a colloquy with the juror. And as I noted, the juror initially said that he moved to New Jersey and was living in New Jersey, and later clarified that's where his daughter had been living, because the court asked the juror again, just inquiring as to the living situation. So it's not just an issue of, and just to add to that, initially, when the juror indicated that he was living in, he had previously moved to New Jersey and he moved in with his girlfriend. The court asked where he was living previously, and the juror answered in the Bronx. And then while the court was attempting to ask a question, the juror answered, I still have a New York license. I still maintain that residence. All my bills go to the Bronx, so nothing has changed. And that again would suggest an effort to, in the juror's mind, try to get into the jury. He wants to be on the jury. And so he's making that clarification. And the reason why that's significant is that after there's a break, that's when there's questioning about where the juror lives, and where, in stark contrast to what the juror initially said. He then indicated that he spent most of his time in the Bronx, in New York, not in New Jersey, which is just a flat inconsistency with what he previously said during the early part of the colloquy. He said he spent 4 to 5 nights a week in New York. So then your suggestion is, well, why don't we have a juror actually come forward and answer some of these questions to clarify that? And I heard that. The issue is, though, is not having the juror try to reconcile those inconsistencies. That might provide a rationale to put these things together, and it would not address why these were inconsistencies in the first place. It would not address the concern of whether the juror is shading answers or just trying to prove an explanation in an attempt to stay on the jury, which the case had indicated raised concerns about the integrity of the process, about the fairness of the process. And that is the reason why we have alternate jurors. And as to those alternate jurors, we engage in a fair process with each side, had the ability to have preemptory challenges to strike the jurors they didn't like. As you pointed out, that's why I said earlier today, it's very true that regardless of the application, we have a very diverse jury. And that would continue to be the case. But the concern, even if we were to hear from the juror and have some explanation to reconcile the different answers, is that there would be an appearance and a reasonable perception that the process may have been tainted, and that there may be a juror on the jury who has an agenda, who wants to be there, and who is not going to be either able or willing to follow the rules. And that is a determination that the court has to make without regard to any other considerations, because if the integrity of the process is compromised in that way, then the commitment that I made to the jury and that the jury made in response to have a fair and impartial proceeding and to decide this case based on the facts and the law and not based on any other inconsistencies or prejudice or bias would be compromised. And that is the reason, if there is a concern about that, that is where we have the alternate juror step in. And that is why this is the right step to take at this juncture. Whew. Donaldson speaks. Your Honor, may I say one more thing and I'll sit down? Of course. I understand what you're saying. I truly do. But it's going to be a less diverse jury when you do what you said you're going to do. That is a fact. And I, for one, believe that this is, in my mind, particularly practicing in this district so long and seeing what I've seen, I think this is of paramount importance, sometimes above just about all else, that we have a jury that is a representative of who they're making a decision against, particularly in the city. So I wholeheartedly but respectfully disagree with the court in that respect. I think that we do compromise the integrity of this process when we make a jury less diverse. I think that, and I'm not saying that in all situations. If the right reason comes up, then fine. I just say keep it fair. That's my motto. But I think this is But I think in this particular situation, I don't think it's an unreasonable or it's completely in the court's discretion. I respect as that as well. But in this particular situation, I don't think it's that much of a burden on the process of something that we all shouldn't want to ensure we're coming to the right conclusion. That's why I do not think that simply bringing him out back out or going in the back or whatever has to be done to make sure that we're making the right decision. In my opinion, it's just that important. I shouldn't say my opinion. In our opinion, it's just that important. So I understand what the court is saying. I can see for the record that the court has thought about this extremely well. I see that and respect that. But I'm basing everything else, my experience in this courthouse on several of these floors that we have here is something that we should be striving for. And if we're going to reduce that, then I think we should just have an extremely good reason to do that. And one last thing, in response to my adversary said about Mr. Johnson making us to make a deal on race, I have a rule. I don't generally play the race card unless I have it in my hands. And I'm not saying I'm playing it now, but the facts are the facts, and I go on with the facts. I'll go on with what the facts are. And all I'm suggesting to the court, and I'll sit down for this type of decision, we do have alternates that were, we all picked those alternates, just like we all picked these sitting jurors because we selected those that we want to preserve. So I do understand that they're equally appropriate for the jury. But to remove one during the trial, I think it wouldn't burden us too much just to make sure and bring him out here, however many minutes the court deems appropriate to ensure we're doing the right thing. Not to ensure we're doing the right thing, but to ensure as best as we can that the conclusions drawn are the right ones. That's all I have. Okay, court says, all right, I hear you, Mr. Donaldson. Agnifilo speaks. I have preservation issues, and that's an argument that we haven't made. I see the court's going. I see where the court's going, but I want to just say for the record, I can do that very quickly if that's okay. I had this exact same issue in a state case, and there was a body of state law, and the state law in the Court of Appeals, and it's the Court of Appeals of the state of New York interpreting the US Constitution, just wants to bring your honor's attention to this case. It's not a federal case. It's the case is People versus Jonthan from, okay, so they cite a case, and what it basically says is that there are differences between the principal jurors and the alternate jurors, and that a defendant has a constitutional right to a jury of his or her choosing, that being the principal jurors. Now, one of the things that I'm seeing, and I'm not seeing, there's a wide disparity from the way certainly that federal law has been enunciated in this courtroom. So he makes comparison to cases and whatnot. One of the things, and he basically says it on his last paragraph, I know I'm throwing the ball into the corner of the end zone by bringing up the state's case, but this is actually an issue that I had in another case. And I was trying to check why there's this wide distinction between state cases, which seems to be interpreting the same constitution in the federal cases that we've discussed today. For all those reasons, I just want to make the record clear that that's our position, Judge. Thank you. Okay. And then Steele also speaks. Okay. And Steele says, in summary, I feel it's important for the court to potentially consider, if you haven't, that all of this information this honorable court based its decision upon have been known during Von Dyer's, and all these people in front of this court heard it and did not raise the issue. And now, after weeks of trial, after watching which each juror makes faces at certain times or may have some sort of reflection in their body language, now all of a sudden we go back to Von Dyer and something that should have been picked out at the time, and say now it's obvious that the juror made inconsistencies, which now would cause the court to believe that the juror wanted to be on the jury and made some potential falsehoods. That's Steele throwing it back at the judge. Side note, why wasn't this called out before? Why is it being called out at week 4 or 5 at this point? Let me know what you guys think in the chat. But Steele is basically throwing steel, a ball of steel at the judge with that comment right there. I'm just like, oh, okay, let's keep going. And I think that's a very bad road to go down because that's how people gain the system. I'm not poking at the prosecution or anybody else. I'm just saying that it seems like it's an issue that everybody knew about, but nobody was concerned with it to raise it when we were striking the jury and exercising our preemptory challenges. And it does not, that needs to be factored in my request for the honorable court into consideration. I would ask you to do so and at least bring in the juror to potentially explain any questions that the court may have. But here's the deal, defense. You guys didn't want the judge to bring the juror, and now you're wanting the judge to bring the juror to question? I have questions about this, but okay. The court then speaks. I want to fully consider the things that everyone has said, and as I always try to do. I will say, as to the last point, I don't know, Mr. Steele, what you're referring to exactly. The entire premise and the reason why we are here talking about this issue is because there was information that came to light this week when we had a colloquy with this juror. That is the reason why we're talking about this. This was certainly not known to the court at Von Dyer. And if it was known to the defense, then I think that's a separate issue. Was it known to the defense? That's the question that I have. Okay. But it was certainly not known to the court. And it certainly not something that was raised during the Von Dyer process. In fact, the juror explanation turns on things that he says happened after the Von Dyer process began. Now, it's the inconsistencies in the answers there and the inconsistencies between those answers and the Von Dyer colloquy that are raised the concerns here. And to be very clear, it is not just this particular issue that is at stake. The problem is that where there are some types of concerns raised as to these specific questions, that opens up the question about other answers. The other issues that were raised during the Von Dyer process that the parties and the court went back and forth on to develop a questionnaire about over a series of weeks. And the questions, everyone agreed, were very important in this case to make sure that the jury, that we drew what was going to be fair and impartial jury that could follow the court's instructions and consider the evidence presented in an unbiased way. So when there are these issues that come to light during the process, and they come to light in an organic way just based on the issue that had come up with respect to the juror, it is the court's job to make sure that the process is not threatened. And that's why we have 6 alternate jurors, because the court anticipated that some things might happen during this very long trial. And to have a trial like this, but to have some people wondering, what was there a juror who was seated who did not have the intent to follow the court's instructions or could not follow the court instructions, but instead was acting on a personal agenda? And there was some evidence of that, and the actions what that was readily available to seat one of the alternate jurors was not taken, and instead that juror was allowed to deliberate on the case, I think goes to the core of the undermining the trial process. And that's something that the court has to monitor. That's just, Mr. Steele, to your concerns. But I'm going to think, Mr. Donaldson and Mr. Agnifilo, about the issues that you've raised. And if there's any changes, if I think it warrants to bring the juror back to have a discussion, then I'll let you know. The entire jury is gone today, so it's not something that can be done today. So I think the better part of the valor is to make sure that I've considered everything that you've raised. And because, again, I always try to. So I will make sure to do that, and I'll advise the parties if there's any changes in how we proceed. So here, I think the judge said that he was going to take basically the weekend to think about, what's going to happen with this juror, but it sounds like he's dismissed. At least formally, he might have to be informed that he's dismissed so that he doesn't show up Monday. But based on how the judge is kind of like taking this on in, it sounds like he's kind of already made up his mind. Guys, let me know what you think about this whole situation. What do you think about the juror? What do you think about Jonthan Perez? What do you think about all these different moving parts to June 13th? It was a lot. And I hope that this review helps you prepare for court tomorrow, Monday, which we will be live for. Make sure you guys are checking out our channel. Shout out to you guys. And again, if you stayed here for the full, I think this video is going to be a good 2 hours. Hell, thank you for doing that. Hit the like button, subscribe, super chat, do all those things that y'all do to support us. Thank you. Because we've been working really hard to bring the information. Shout out to everybody and shout out to those creators covering this case. I'll see you guys mañana, Monday morning. Bye, guys.